2 years after the incident, the community gathered for a special anniversary celebration in the park where it all began. The sidewalks were filled with chalk art, but this time, the drawings told stories of hope, change, and unity. The young girl, now 7, stood confidently before the crowd, her smile bright as she released a handful of butterflies, a symbol of transformation that had become the movement's logo. The police department's transformation had become a case study in successful reform. Departments from across the globe sent representatives to learn from their example. The training program had evolved to include regular community engagement sessions where officers spent time in neighborhoods not to patrol, but to connect, learn, and understand. The chief proudly reported that complaints had dropped by 85%, while positive community interactions had increased tenfold. The former officer had found his true calling in education and reform. His story of personal transformation had helped change the mindsets of countless police officers. Every mistake can become a stepping stone to something better, he would say during his workshops. His willingness to acknowledge his past and work for change had earned him respect from both law enforcement and community activists. The mother's work in education had expanded beyond her original guide. She now led workshops for teachers and parents about empowering children while building respectful relationships with authority figures. Her classroom had become a model for others, showing how to create safe spaces where children felt confident expressing themselves and standing up for what's right. The community art program had inspired similar initiatives in over 500 cities worldwide. The simple act of drawing with chalk had grown into a recognized method of community building and healing. Police academies now included art-based community engagement in their standard training, recognizing that sometimes the best way to protect and serve was to sit down and create together. The young girl's father had started a non-profit organization focused on building bridges between law enforcement and local communities. The organization provided resources, training, and support for departments wanting to implement similar changes. Their motto, "Change begins with understanding," appeared on shirts worn by both officers and community members at their events. The university's research had expanded into a long-term study showing the lasting effects of creative community engagement. Their findings were clear. When police departments invested in genuine community connections, especially with young people, everyone benefited. The chalk effect had become a recognized term in criminal justice textbooks, representing the power of human connection in law enforcement. Local schools reported that the improved relationship between students and police officers had lasting effects beyond the classroom. Graduates of the program often returned to mentor younger students, creating a cycle of positive change. One high school senior summed it up perfectly. "We learned that change doesn't always come from big actions. Sometimes it starts with something as simple as drawing on a sidewalk." As the anniversary celebration came to a close, the young girl and her family stood with community leaders, police officers, and neighbors, all holding pieces of chalk. Together, they drew a massive mural representing their journey, from a moment of fear to a movement of hope. The final image showed hands of all sizes joined together, surrounded by butterflies taking flight. The story of how one difficult moment transformed an entire community continued to inspire others. But perhaps the most powerful legacy was the understanding that real change comes not from dwelling in anger, but from working together to build something better. As the sun set on the celebration, the young girl added one final drawing to the mural. A small heart with the words, "Every story can have a new ending." 18 months after the incident, the story's impact had grown far beyond what anyone could have imagined. The young girl's family received an invitation to an international conference on community policing in Europe. Their presentation about turning a painful moment into positive change moved the audience to tears and sparked similar initiatives in countries around the world. The police department had become a national model for reform. Their training program now included a powerful segment called The Chalk Lesson, where new officers learned about the incident through body camera footage, community testimonials, and discussions with officers who had been through the changes. "This isn't just about what not to do," the police chief explained to a group of trainees. "It's about who we choose to be as officers and human beings." The retired art teachers therapy program had grown into a full-fledged healing center where families from across the country came to learn about art-based community building. The walls were covered with chalk drawings, each telling a story of healing and hope. The young girl occasionally visited to draw with new children, showing them how art could help express feelings too complex for words. The former officer's speaking career led to an unexpected opportunity when a major police training academy hired him as a full-time instructor. His course on human-first policing became mandatory for all recruits. "Every person you encounter is someone's child," he would remind his students. "Never forget the human being behind every interaction." Local businesses continued supporting community initiatives in creative ways. The hardware store's monthly chalk art events had grown into street festivals, drawing visitors from neighboring states. Food vendors, musicians, and artists joined in, turning the events into celebrations of community unity. Police officers could always be found drawing alongside children, breaking down barriers one colorful creation at a time. The City Council's Youth Advisory Board expanded to include more young voices. They created a peer mentoring program where older children helped younger ones understand their rights and responsibilities in the community. The young girl, now a regular speaker at board meetings, often shared how her experience had taught her about the power of speaking up and working together for change. The university research team's work led to a nationwide study of community policing methods. Their findings showed that departments adopting similar community engagement programs saw dramatic improvements in public trust and officer job satisfaction. The chalk effect had become a recognized term in law enforcement training, representing the power of creative engagement in building community relationships. Schools across the country began implementing art-based programs to build trust between students and authority figures. The results were remarkable: improved attendance, better academic performance, and stronger community connections. One principal noted, "When children feel seen and heard, they thrive." It's as simple and as profound as that. The documentary about their community's transformation had inspired similar films in other cities. These stories, when shown together, painted a powerful picture of how communities could heal and grow stronger through understanding and cooperation. The young girl's family often attended screenings, sharing their story of how a moment of injustice became a catalyst for lasting change. As the one-year mark approached, the community's transformation had become a blueprint for change across the nation. The young girl, now 6 years old, had started first grade with a confidence that inspired everyone around her. Her story was included in a new children's book series about young people who helped change their communities for the better. The police department's evolution continued to impress observers. Regular coffee with cops meetings at local playgrounds became popular weekend events, where officers joined families for casual conversations and games. These simple gatherings helped break down barriers that had existed for generations. One officer remarked, "We're not just serving the community anymore, we're part of it." The former officer's journey took another meaningful turn when he started working with a youth mentorship program. His experience had taught him valuable lessons about judgment and redemption. Working with at-risk teens, he shared his story openly, showing how one moment of poor judgment could change everything. The teens appreciated his honesty, and May found inspiration in his commitment to making amends. The Mother's Resource Guide for Parents had been translated into 12 languages and was being used in schools worldwide. She received touching letters from families who used her book to start important conversations about authority, respect, and standing up for what's right. One parent wrote, "Your family's story helped us teach our children about courage and forgiveness." The community art program expanded in unexpected ways. Local businesses donated wall space for permanent murals designed by children and police officers working together. Each mural told a story of community healing and hope. The artwork became so popular that tour buses started including them in their city routes, with the young girl's original chalk drawings inspiring the first mural. The university research team's findings about the chalk effect were published in a major social science journal. Their study showed that communities implementing similar programs saw a 70% improvement in police-community relations. The simple act of creating art together had proven more effective than many traditional community policing initiatives. The city's Youth Advisory Board celebrated its first anniversary with a special ceremony. The young members had influenced numerous policy changes, from playground designs to police training programs. Their success inspired other cities to create similar boards, giving children a voice in community decisions. The young girl, now a board member herself, spoke confidently about the importance of listening to children's perspectives. Local schools noticed unexpected benefits from their reformed approach to school resource officers. Attendance improved, disciplinary issues decreased, and students reported feeling safer and more understood. The officers became trusted mentors, with many staying after school to help with homework or coach sports teams. One officer started a popular art club, saying, "Sometimes the best way to protect and serve is with a paintbrush." The documentary about their community continued to gather acclaim, screening at schools and police academies nationwide. But its greatest impact came from small community screenings, where people gathered to discuss how they could implement similar changes in their own neighborhoods. The film's message was clear: positive change starts with seeing the humanity in everyone. 6 months after the incident, the ripple effects continued to spread in surprising ways. The young girl's story had touched hearts across the country, but more importantly, it had sparked real change. A prestigious children's rights organization honored her family with an award for their role in promoting positive community change through peaceful means. The local police department had transformed dramatically. Their new training program, now known as the Community First Initiative, was being adopted by departments in 3 neighboring states. New officers spent their first month not on patrol, but in community centers, schools, and neighborhoods, learning to see the human side of law enforcement. The change in police-community relations was remarkable. Complaints were down, while positive interactions increased significantly. The former officer's public speaking engagements had evolved into a full program about accountability and bias recognition. Police academies across the country requested his presentations, where he shared his story with unflinching honesty. "I thought I was enforcing the law," he would say, "but I was just enforcing my own biases." His willingness to acknowledge his mistakes and work toward change earned him unexpected respect from many who had initially condemned him. The young girl's mother partnered with child psychologists to create a guide for parents about discussing authority figures with their children. The book balanced teaching respect for law enforcement while empowering children to understand their rights. Written in simple language with beautiful illustrations, it became a valuable resource for families and educators nationwide. Community art continued to play a central role in healing and connection. The Sidewalk Chalk movement inspired an annual festival where families, artists, and law enforcement officers created murals together. The event grew so popular that the city closed down several blocks to accommodate the crowds. Pictures of police officers drawing alongside children became powerful symbols of positive change. The City Council's innovative approach to community policing caught the attention of national lawmakers. They were invited to Washington to share their success story. The young girl and her parents testified before a congressional committee, their story helping to shape new guidelines for police interactions with minors. Their testimony was particularly powerful because it focused not on punishment, but on education and understanding. Local schools reported significant improvements in student-police relationships. The School Resource Officer program was completely redesigned, with officers now trained in childhood development and trauma-informed care. They participated in art classes, played at recess, and became trusted members of the school community. One officer even started a popular after-school program teaching bicycle safety and basic repairs. The documentary about the community's transformation premiered at a major film festival, earning critical acclaim. But the most meaningful screening happened in the community center, where residents gathered to watch their own story of healing and change. The young girl, seeing herself on screen, whispered to her mother, "We helped make things better, didn't we?" A research team from a nearby university began studying what they called the chalk effect, how creative expression and community engagement could transform police-community relations. Their preliminary findings showed remarkable improvements in trust, communication, and mutual understanding when departments implemented similar programs. 1 month after the incident, the changes in the community had taken root in remarkable ways. The young girl's family received an invitation to speak at a national conference on community policing. The mother's speech, simple yet powerful, moved many to tears as she described not just the incident, but the healing and positive change that followed. The police department's new training program was showing impressive results. Officers now participated in weekly community engagement activities, from reading books at the local library to coaching youth sports teams. These simple interactions were building trust and understanding between law enforcement and local families. The chief noticed a significant improvement in how his officers handled sensitive situations, especially those involving children. The former officer's journey took an unexpected turn. After much reflection and counseling, he began speaking at police academies about his experience. His honest accounts of how bias and poor judgment had destroyed his career became a powerful teaching tool. "I lost everything in 10 minutes," he would tell the cadets, "but the real tragedy was that I forgot the humanity of a child." The sidewalk chalk movement evolved into something bigger than anyone expected. Artists and children collaborated on a traveling exhibition called Chalk Voices, featuring photographs of street art from communities across the country. The exhibition opened at the city's main gallery, with the young girl cutting the ribbon. Her confident smile showed how far she had come from that frightening morning. Local schools implemented new programs focusing on civil rights and community engagement. Students learned about peaceful protest through art, music, and storytelling. The young girls' class created a beautiful picture book about their experience, with each child contributing artwork and thoughts about community and understanding. The book was shared with schools nationwide, inspiring similar projects in other communities. The City Council's Youth Advisory Board proved remarkably effective. Children as young as 8 participated in discussions about playground safety, after-school programs, and community events. Their fresh perspectives led to several innovative changes in how the city approached family services. The board became a model for other cities looking to include young voices in community decisions. The Retired Art Teachers Therapy program expanded to 3 more community centers. Children used art to express their feelings about authority, fear, and hope. One particularly moving project involved children and police officers creating murals together, breaking down barriers through shared creativity. These sessions helped both groups see each other as human beings rather than stereotypes. A documentary filmmaker began recording the community's transformation. Through interviews with families, officers, and community leaders, the story emerged of how one painful incident led to meaningful change. The young girl's father summed it up perfectly during his interview. "Sometimes it takes a moment of darkness to show us where we need to shine light." Support groups formed for families who had experienced similar situations. These meetings became safe spaces for sharing stories and finding solutions. The mother's experience as both a teacher and parent helped her guide these conversations with wisdom and empathy. Together, these families worked on proposals for policy changes that would protect children while building stronger community relationships. By the end of the week, the incident had sparked a movement that went far beyond one neighborhood. The simple act of children drawing with chalk had transformed into a nationwide symbol of peaceful protest. Parks and sidewalks across the country became canvases for community expression, with families gathering to create art and discuss positive change. The former officer's termination hearing made headlines, but what caught everyone's attention was his unexpected statement. "I was wrong," he admitted, his voice shaking. "Watching the video of myself, I didn't recognize the person I had become." His honest self-reflection and public apology opened up important conversations about accountability and personal growth within police departments. The young girl's family received thousands of letters and packages from around the world. Art supplies, books, and heartfelt messages filled their living room. One package particularly touched them, a handmade quilt featuring images of chalk drawings from children across the country. The family decided to donate most of the gifts to local children's organizations, turning their experience into an opportunity to help others. At the police academy, major changes were already taking place. The chief introduced mandatory workshops focusing on community engagement and childhood development. New recruits now spent time volunteering at local playgrounds and community centers, building positive relationships with families and children. Experienced officers shared stories about successful community interactions, emphasizing the importance of empathy and understanding. The City Council's new policies became a model for other communities. They established a youth advisory board, giving children and teenagers a voice in community decisions. The young girl's mother was invited to join a special committee focused on building bridges between law enforcement and local families. Her perspective as both a teacher and a parent proved invaluable in developing new guidelines. Local businesses joined the movement for positive change. The hardware store organized a monthly community chalk day, providing free supplies and closing their parking lot for families to create art together. A small cafe near the school started displaying children's artwork, creating a rotating gallery that celebrated young artists and their stories. The retired art teacher who had helped the young girl with her mural started a weekly art therapy program. Children who had witnessed or experienced difficult situations with authority figures found healing through creative expression. The program became so successful that the local community center offered a permanent space for the classes. Support for the family continued to grow in unexpected ways. A group of police officers from different departments organized a surprise visit to the girls' school. They came not in uniform but wearing t-shirts decorated with chalk art, ready to join the students in an afternoon of drawing and positive interaction. This gesture of solidarity and change touched many hearts and showed that positive reform was possible. The incident even reached educational circles, with teachers incorporating discussions about civil rights, community action, and peaceful protest into their lessons. Students learned about historical moments of change and how small actions could lead to significant improvements in society. The young girl's story became an example of how communities could come together to address challenging situations with grace and determination. The following morning, the story had spread far beyond their small suburban community. Major news networks picked up the footage, and social media conversations exploded with millions of shares and comments. The little girl's chalk drawings had become a powerful symbol of innocence confronting unnecessary force. At the police department, Officer Thompson faced the consequences of his actions during an early morning meeting. The internal affairs investigation moved at unprecedented speed, driven by clear video evidence and mounting public pressure. The police chief, having reviewed all footage multiple times overnight, made a decision that would send ripples through law enforcement communities nationwide. "Your badge," he said firmly, holding out his hand. "After reviewing your conduct, termination is immediate." The chief's voice carried the weight of decades of experience, his disappointment evident as he explained how this incident had damaged public trust. Thompson's union representative, present for the meeting, remained silent. The evidence was too clear to dispute. Meanwhile, at the local elementary school where the young girl's mother taught, students and staff organized a special assembly. The principal spoke about kindness and judgment, using age-appropriate language to help young children understand the complex situation. The school counselor spent extra time with classes, helping students process their feelings about what had happened to their friend and classmate. The city council held an emergency session that morning. The council member who witnessed the incident presented a comprehensive proposal for new police training protocols. The meeting room overflowed with community members, many holding signs decorated with chalk drawings. Parents brought their children, wanting them to witness this moment of community action and positive change. Back in the neighborhood, something extraordinary was happening. The sidewalk chalk movement had grown overnight. People drove from neighboring cities to add their own artwork to the ever-growing display. Professional artists worked alongside children, creating a stunning gallery of street art that stretched for several blocks. Local businesses donated hundreds of boxes of chalk, and someone set up a refreshment stand for the artists. The young girl, still processing the previous day's events, found healing in an unexpected way. A retired art teacher who lived nearby invited her to help create a special mural. Together, they designed a beautiful piece showing children of all backgrounds playing together, their chalk drawings coming to life and flying away as butterflies. The artwork would later be photographed and featured in a national magazine's cover story about community resilience. Police departments across the country began reaching out to the city's chief, requesting copies of the incident footage to use as a training example of what not to do. The chief, seeing an opportunity for broader reform, worked with education experts to develop a new training module focusing on interactions with minors and implicit bias awareness. As evening approached, the local news interviewed the girl's parents. They spoke with remarkable grace about using this incident as a catalyst for positive change. "We don't want anger to be the lasting legacy," her father said, his voice steady and thoughtful. "We want this to be a moment that brings real change, that helps build a better future for all our children." The family's attorney, working pro bono, helped them navigate the increasing media attention while preparing their case. But their focus wasn't on punishment. Instead, they worked with community leaders to draft proposals for new police protocols specifically addressing interactions with children. Their thoughtful approach would later be praised as a model for turning a negative incident into positive systematic change. The next few hours brought a whirlwind of activity to the quiet suburban street. The police chief arrived personally, his face grim as he reviewed the body camera footage on a tablet while standing near his vehicle. The young girl had already been freed from the handcuffs, now safely in her mother's arms as they sat on their front porch, surrounded by supportive neighbors. News crews had set up their equipment along the street, their satellite vans creating a makeshift media village. The mother, still processing the morning's events, received a call from a prominent civil rights attorney who had seen the viral videos. The lawyer offered to represent them pro bono, recognizing the case's significance in the broader conversation about police reform. Officer Thompson sat in his patrol car, his face pale as he watched his 15-year career crumbling around him. His supervisor had already taken his badge and gun, placing him on immediate administrative leave. The weight of his actions began to sink in as he observed the community's reaction, not just anger, but profound disappointment. The city council member who witnessed the incident had already called an emergency meeting. In her 20 years of public service, she had never seen such a clear example of poor judgment and potential bias. The council member's presence would prove crucial in the swift response that followed. Back at police headquarters, the Internal Affairs Division worked quickly, interviewing witnesses and collecting videos from multiple angles. The footage showed not just the handcuffing, but also revealed Officer Thompson's dismissive attitude toward the mother's attempts to reason with him. His body camera had picked up several comments that would be impossible to defend in any disciplinary hearing. The young girl's father, a local business owner, rushed home from work. His usual gentle demeanor was tested as he watched the viral videos on his phone during the drive. Yet, upon arriving, he channeled his emotions into positive action, immediately joining community leaders in calling for systematic changes in police training. Social media continued to amplify the incident. A local artist posted a powerful sketch of the little girl's chalk drawings next to an image of handcuffs, creating a stark contrast that captured the nation's attention. Within hours, the hashtag chalk drawing is not a crime began trending nationwide. The police chief, a veteran of 30 years on the force, called a press conference right there on the street. He didn't mince words, acknowledging the department's failure and announcing immediate changes to training protocols. The chief's candid admission and quick action would later be praised as an example of proper leadership during a crisis. As the sun began to set on this extraordinary day, something remarkable happened. On a bright spring morning in a small suburban neighborhood, a moment that should have been filled with childhood innocence turned into a disturbing example of poor judgment and racial bias. A young girl, just 5 years old, was playing with chalk on the sidewalk outside her home, drawing colorful butterflies and flowers like May children her age do. Officer Richard Thompson was responding to a noise complaint several houses down when he noticed the little girl. Instead of seeing an innocent child at play, his controversial decision in the next few minutes would not only change his life forever, but spark a nationwide conversation about police conduct and racial sensitivity. The girl's mother, a respected elementary school teacher, was watching from their front porch while grading papers. She noticed Officer Thompson's patrol car slowing down, but thought nothing of it initially. After all, their neighborhood was generally quiet, and police presence usually meant routine patrols. However, what happened next left the entire community in shock. Officer Thompson approached the child, claiming she was vandalizing public property with her sidewalk chalk. Despite the mother immediately coming forward to explain that they lived there and that sidewalk chalk was a harmless children's activity, the officer's response was severely disproportionate. Witnesses from neighboring houses began recording as the situation escalated. The officer, ignoring the mother's calm explanations and proper identification, made the unconscionable decision to place the terrified 5-year-old in handcuffs. The little girl's cries echoed through the neighborhood, drawing more attention to the unfolding scene. What Officer Thompson didn't realize was that among the gathering crowd was the city council member who lived just 2 doors down. This council member had been instrumental in recent police reform discussions and immediately began making calls while documenting the incident. The mother, maintaining remarkable composure despite her distress, continued to advocate for her daughter, while another neighbor contacted the police department's internal affairs division. The body camera footage would later reveal the full extent of the officer's inappropriate conduct, including dismissive comments about teaching them young. Within those crucial 10 minutes, social media was already ablaze with videos from multiple angles showing the officer's inexcusable behavior toward a child whose only crime was creating art with washable chalk. The police chief, upon receiving word of the incident, immediately dispatched a superior officer to the scene. As news helicopters circled overhead and local reporters began arriving, the story was rapidly transforming from a local incident into a national conversation about police interaction with minorities, especially children. The timestamp on the body camera would later show that it took exactly 10 minutes from the first interaction to the moment that would effectively end Officer Thompson's law enforcement career. In this short span, a series of calls and decisions were made at the highest levels of the city's administration. The story of a young child being handcuffed for sidewalk chalk art was about to become a pivotal moment in the ongoing national dialogue about police reform and racial justice in America. Little did Officer Thompson know that his next shift briefing would never come, and his actions on this sunny morning would not only cost him his badge, but would also lead to sweeping changes in department policies regarding interactions with minors. The event would serve as a powerful reminder that in an age of instant documentation and social media, accountability can be swift and absolute.